we have a brief agenda for you this evening for our hour and a half together. We're going to start with welcome and introductions. Then we'll go to project background and status. We'll go into project alternatives, then environmental analysis, and we're going to close with a Q&A session for the end of our meeting. So we've got a lot of folks here that are going to be able to answer questions for you. We also have a lot of materials at the front over here. If you didn't get a chance on your way in, you can grab them on your way out. We have comment cards available as well as information on the project. And so we want to welcome everybody to help yourselves to those. We also have name tags if you need one, though maybe you don't because you might know each other. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with the welcome. We have members from our Caltrans team. If I can get folks to raise your hands. We've got members of the Caltrans team here. We've got members of the Granite Construction team. Let's see, where are my Granite Construction friends? Right on. And Compass as well. Awesome. And these folks are here to share information on the draft environmental document with you all tonight. We are going to go ahead and ask folks to embrace some constructive participation agreements. And these are going to help to make sure that everybody has a chance to participate. You know, my goal as facilitator is really to hold the space for everybody's voice to be heard. And so, you know, we know that the purpose of this meeting is to share information about the draft environmental document, accept comments, and answer questions. I realize that didn't make it onto my slide, but we are also here to answer questions. We're going to ask that you please save your questions until after the presentation because we have a lot of information to share with you and we do have a good chunk of time reserved for questions, so you will have a chance to ask your questions. Of course, we're going to ask that you avoid interrupting or talking over one another. Again, it's really important that everybody has a chance to share their comment or share their question. Treat everybody with respect. I don't think I need to say this. I'm sure you all will anyways. But, you know, we want to just respect each other even if we have opinions that we disagree with, right? And then finally, we're going to ask that you be mindful of the time allotted. One of my jobs as facilitator will be to help keep us on track. And again, make sure that we have time at the end for Q&A. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the Title VI statement. This is an important piece of this process because we want to make sure, as the statement says, Caltrans ensures that no person in the state of California is excluded from participation in, denied the benefits of, or otherwise subjected to discrimination in Caltrans programs, policies, procedures, activities, and services on the grounds of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. And of course, this goes along with, we want to make sure that everybody has the chance to participate, and so that is what we're going to do here tonight. So next, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Katie to get us started.
So as Ramona mentioned, my name is Katie Everett. I'm a professional engineer and project manager for Caltrans. I do want to thank everybody for participating tonight. It's great to see such an active community here. And
hold the mic to your mouth, please.
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm hearing feedback. I'm hearing feedback from folks. We got to get the mic up close and personal, right? And to speak slowly. Got it. Okay. Thank you. And I'm going to help by running the slides. Is that what you say? Sounds great. Okay. Awesome.
And I want to thank our partners, the Sheriff's Office here, for helping and support safety on those roadways. Thank you so much. I want to thank all the team that worked very hard on this project. It really is a world-class team performing world-class work.
We can't hear you.
And I want to thank Granite, our partners in this project. Caltrans is using an innovative delivery method that brings the builder on early so that we can use their building expertise. It really has helped inform the environmental document and the footprint of the project and also the construction scenarios. The mission of Caltrans, first and foremost, is to provide a safe and reliable transportation network that serves all people and respects the environment. Caltrans is responsible for public safety, and with that in mind, we're going to talk about the project before us tonight. So the Albion River Bridge project, where are we at? The environmental document phase, we started in 2013. This is where we are now, working on the environmental document, analyzing the different impacts of the project. We anticipate having a final environmental document and preferred alternative next year, at which time we'll move into final design with construction in 2027. The goal tonight is to discuss the basics of the draft environmental document, facilitate conversation, and most importantly, take comments from all of you. The public comment period closes September 9th. Questions and comments submitted in writing will be included in the environmental document. The easiest way is through Albion Bridge at dot.ca.gov. We also have some comment forms that can be filled out tonight and handed in. The Albion River Bridge is in Mendocino County along State Route 1 and is the primary route over the Albion Bridge, over the Albion River. It serves as a vital link between the north and south sides of the community for residents of Albion, residents of Mendocino County, and travelers to this area from all over the world. State Route 1 also serves to get children to school, people to jobs, and goods transport. We really hear at Caltrans has heard how important this bridge is to this community. And for that reason, we have exhausted efforts at analyzing this bridge. It's a really, really cool bridge. It's amazing the feat that went into making this bridge.
I got that.
All right, got louder. Let's try over here. Does that work? Seems like it's working. All right. The bridge is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. When the bridge was being built during World War II, concrete and steel materials were being rationed. So instead of the original concrete arch design, the bridge was built of available materials. So today we have this timber structure with a recycled steel truss for the deck. It was really built to last 25 years. It really goes out as a testament to our crews that has been maintained for over 85. Respecting this historic nature of the bridge, the concern of the community, Caltrans and partners have conducted an extensive effort to develop and analyze the environmental document. The marine environment is a beautifully harsh environment. Timber and steel are not ideal materials, and as we have seen, the bridge has continued to deteriorate. The iconic alternatives we'll propose tonight will provide the safe, reliable transportation network for all roadway users. As I mentioned, the team will go over what was analyzed a little later. To start off, I'd like to talk about the project purpose and need and how projects begin. So, how does Caltrans start a project? Projects begin with a need. A need can be any deficiency within the transportation system, such as a roadway that has collisions or a street that needs sidewalks. For the Albion River Bridge, several deficiencies were indicated in bridge inspections. A critical deficiency is the bridge does not meet modern seismic standards, and the steel truss lacks redundancy. These deficiencies increase the probability of a collapse or closure during an earthquake. I think of Django when I think of structures and earthquakes. If you remove one piece, the weight shifts, it could fall. And redundancy is very similar. If one component is compromised, it could cause catastrophic failure. Standards have changed and improved since the bridge was built. The North Coast is a seismically dynamic environment. The subduction zone off the coast is responsible for earthquakes from 6 to 7.2, including the 6.4 we had in December of 22. The bridge is seismically deficient, making it susceptible to catastrophic failure or collapse during an earthquake. The bridge was designed to carry lighter loads. Vehicles continue to increase in size. Heavier loads can add strain and advance weakening to the bridge. The bridge is one of two bridges along State Route 1 that have restricted loads. The load rating of the bridge could be reduced over time, and as a result, it can continue to deteriorate with a possible reduction to just one lane. When we talk about heavy loads, my structures experts would typically say cyclical loading, but I think of a paperclip being bent back and forth with repeated loads. Eventually the paperclip snaps. Next slide. The bridge has substandard wooden barrier rails. Again, our vehicles continue to increase in size and weight, and modern barriers are designed to withstand greater forces. There is no approved standard guardrail or barrier rail that can be added to this bridge. I've seen these harrowing photos of the big rig that went over the side, and safety really demands that we act to prevent this from ever happening again. The bridge is functionally obsolete. What does functionally obsolete mean? It means it doesn't meet minimum design standards. The bridge currently has a 1-foot shoulder. It does not meet the Mendocino County land use policy nor the local coastal plan. Shoulders are crucial for safe travel. It allows for a person to pull over, it allows for bicyclists, it allows for a driver to correct if necessary. This curve at the north side of the bridge has limited sight distance and has been the location of previous collisions. Sight distance is important, it allows people to correct, it allows people to react. Mendocino County has designated this location as a priority improvement for Caltrans because of previous collisions. Next slide, please. Excellent. The bridge lacks continuous safe access for bicyclists and pedestrians. State Route 1 is designated as a Pacific Coast Bike Route. It is also a component of the California Coastal Trail. Caltrans has a goal of enhancing and connecting the transportation network for all roadway users, including bicyclists and pedestrians. Multimodal objectives are also in line with other state, federal agencies, such as the Coastal Commission. The bridge is located in an area that is seismically vulnerable and vulnerable to climate change. Issues like sea level rise, storm surge, and tsunami. The bridge is susceptible to debris loading due to the many closely spaced supports. Debris loading can also cause catastrophic failure and collapse. The bridge requires ongoing preventative maintenance, and it also has preservative-treated timbers in a state of ongoing deterioration, which presents a contaminant leaching risk to the environment. The bridge is also the sole crossing over the Albion River, and it's an important route for tourism and interregional travel along the Mendocino coast. If a full bridge closure was required, rerouting traffic along state routes would be about approximately 126 miles or 3 hours. All of these items are noted as deficiencies, which determine the need of the project. The project's purpose is created from objectives that will meet to address the deficiencies. The purpose of this proposed project is to provide a bridge across the Albion River that meets seismic safety standards, provide safe and reliable multimodal access, and minimize ongoing maintenance costs. The team further developed the project purpose and developed these 10 objectives to meet all of the deficiencies. The objectives here are to eliminate the structural and seismic deficiencies, eliminate the truss main span fracture critical condition, prevent further preservative treatment leaching from existing bridge timbers, minimize ongoing maintenance costs, minimize traffic delays associated with bridge inspection, maintenance, and repairs, and minimize construction-related impacts to the community environment. Another objective is to improve resiliency to sea level rise, storm surge, and tsunamis, and also to provide shoulder widths consistent with local coastal plan requirements, improve roadway alignment and sight distance, and provide that safe multimodal bridge access for pedestrians. The environmental document evaluated a range of alternatives. In listening to the community, Caltrans put in extensive effort in analyzing the rehabilitation as an alternative. 2 rehab alternatives were carefully analyzed within the draft environmental document. One with and one without widening. They do not meet the basic objectives of the project. They are in direct conflict with the coastal plan. They do not improve the roadway alignment and sight distance at the north of the bridge. They do not eliminate the deficiencies, the structural deficiencies. They do not eliminate the fracture critical condition of the truss main span. They do not improve resiliency to climate change. Appendix I is from the draft environmental document. We have some copies for you tonight that goes into the consideration of the rehab alternatives and why they were removed. We have copies over there if you'd like to look at it. Now, I'd like to talk about the build alternatives that were included in the EIR. The draft environmental document proposes these 3 alternatives with design options for consideration. Alternative 1 is seen here in the orange, is to the west of the existing bridge. There's 2 design options. 1A is a non-arch, and 1B is an arch. Alternative 2, in the blue colors here, is to the east of the bridge. There are 2 design options, 2A and 2B. 2A is this light blue color, that is a non-arch design. 2B is the darker blue color, that's the arch design. Alternative 3 is on generally the same alignment, a little bit to the west. 3A is a non-arch. The arch design is consistent with other bridges that you'll see on the coast, and it also holds true to the original design. The design options, arch, non-arch, allows us to capture all the environmental impacts and allows for design refinements later in the process. The western alignment. 1A, this is a 4-span box girder constructed to the west. This bridge rests on 3 piers. 1B is the arch design, constructed to the west. This rests on an arch spandrel and 5 piers. And as I mentioned, the arch design is consistent with other coastal bridges and holds true to the original design. The eastern alignment. 2A. This is a 3-span box girder and it's constructed to the east. It rests on 2 piers. 2B, this is the arch design. It's constructed to the east of the bridge. It rests on an arch spandrel and 6 piers. The western and the eastern alternatives, it's proposed that will take 3 years of construction. On alignment. This is a 4-span box girder constructed generally on the same alignment. We say generally because of the construction practice. It's built on the west side. Half of the new bridge is built on the west. The old bridge would be demolished, and then half of the other bridge is built. Construction for this is estimated to be 5 years. A spandrel arch is not feasible for the on alignment, so there's only one option. The new bridge. The replacement alternatives all meet current seismic standards and current structural standards. There is an improvement at the north of the bridge for that limited sight distance. The new deck also includes 6-foot wide shoulders and 12-foot lanes and a separated pedestrian walkway. What we see here is the dashed lines show what the width of the existing bridge and then the new bridge deck superimposed. What we can see here is the separated pedestrian walkway and the upgraded bridge rails that meet current standards. These designs are consistent with the internal policies for multimodal and other agencies for bicyclists and pedestrians. It is also consistent with the local coastal plan. The alternatives will enhance and connect the multimodal transportation network and provide for that continuous, uninterrupted transportation. Thank you all for your time, and I will pass it over to Candace to provide information on the environmental analysis.
Okay, so let's talk about the environmental analysis for the project. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So Caltrans has been delegated authority to analyze the project's impacts at the state and federal level. Now at the state level, the process for review is called the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. And at the federal level, the process for review is called the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. Now, given the nature of this project and preliminary feedback that Caltrans received from the public, Caltrans chose to conduct the highest level of review afforded under both CEQA and NEPA for this project. And the resulting document is a draft environmental impact report and environmental impact statement. You can see that here. That's also commonly referred to as the draft environmental document, or DED. So you'll hear us refer to the DED tonight in our conversations. Now, as Katie mentioned, and as you can see on this slide, Caltrans has worked for several years with federal, state, and local agencies, as well as technical experts to prepare a robust DED for this project. Next slide. The environmental document is supported by over 20 technical studies, which analyze the project's impacts in a range of categories, from air quality to wild and scenic rivers. A copy of these technical studies is available on the project's website, and they are available in hard copy to review alongside the DED. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about what the environmental analysis showed on this project. Now, under NEPA and CEQA, the significance of a project's impacts are looked at differently. Under NEPA, the impacts are looked at a project-wide level. Under CEQA, the project impacts are looked at in a more detailed way at the category level. So for our time tonight, I'm going to talk about what the environmental analysis revealed about the project's impacts at the CEQA level in these resource categories that you can see. Okay, now the significance of a project's impacts in each category will fall into one of these 4 different classifications. So let's walk through them. They range from no impact to significant and unavoidable impact. Now, no impact is pretty self-explanatory. It means that there's no negative effect on the environment. A less than significant impact means that the effects of the project are noticeable, but they do not rise to a level of significance. Less than significant with mitigation means that the project's effects are potentially significant, but mitigation is available and it's been applied to reduce the impact to a less than significant level. And finally, significant and unavoidable impact means that the effects of the project are potentially significant and that mitigation has been applied. But even with that mitigation, those effects cannot be reduced to a less than significant level. Now, as you can see on this slide, the project's impacts in the majority of categories fell into the no impact or less than significant impact classifications. For our time tonight, kind of in the interest of time, I'm going to talk about where the project's effects had a potentially significant impact in the categories of cultural resources, aesthetics, and biological resources. Next slide. Okay, let's start with cultural resources and aesthetics. Now, these 2 categories go hand in hand on this project. You heard Katie mention we have a bridge that is a designated historic bridge. It is also a scenic resource. It has a memorable, visually distinctive quality. That's the aesthetic side. The project proposes measures to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts to cultural resources and aesthetics. Now, the DED contains a full list of these measures, but some of them are listed here. So for cultural resources, this includes things like options for ways to commemorate the historic significance of the bridge, and monitoring, implementing a monitoring plan during construction to prevent impacts to undiscovered cultural resources. For aesthetics, this means things like applying texture and color to the bridge railing and the bridge retaining walls to blend it in with the surroundings. And restoring vegetation after construction is complete in the project area. Now, even with these measures, a new bridge cannot replace the historic value and visual distinctiveness of the existing bridge. So the project impact in these categories is significant and unavoidable. Now, something important here, Katie mentioned earlier, the DED evaluated 2 bridge types, and you can see those images at the back of the room, a non-arch bridge and an arch bridge. And what the analysis found was that those arch bridge options reduce that significant and unavoidable impact, meaning that they're better for aesthetics. And that's really because those arches are more vivid, they open up and frame the view shed to the ocean, and they're more in keeping with other bridges along the Highway 1 coastline. Okay, let's talk about biological resources. Next slide. Okay, so anybody who's familiar with this area knows this project is located in an area that is highly sensitive for biological resources. We have the Albion River, the Albion Beach and Cove, as well as a variety of sensitive vegetation and habitat for protected plant and animal species. Now the project will, I want to point one thing out just to give you an example. This picture here, off to your right, that shows, it's an aerial view of the bridge. And you can see all this bright green area, those are eelgrass beds. So just to give you an example of how sensitive this area is, those eelgrass beds are both sensitive vegetation, but they also provide habitat for fish. Okay, so the project will involve heavy construction, working in and around these areas to both remove the existing bridge and build a new bridge. This is going to involve things like removal of vegetation, noise and vibration, and work on the beach and in water. These activities are expected to result in both temporary and permanent impacts to biological resources. Now, most of the impacts are expected to be temporary, meaning that the impact will stop once construction is complete. Now, one of the additional handouts we provided in the room is straight from the DED. It's a summary of impacts. And in that summary, you'll see those biological resource areas and the comparison of permanent and temporary impacts between the alternatives. So that's there if you'd like to look at it. The project proposes measures to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts to biological resources. The DED contains the entire list, but I've listed a few of them here as well. So this includes things like raptor surveys in advance of the construction starting, limiting work in water to the period between June 15th and October 15th to protect vulnerable life stages of fish, an on-site biological monitor for the duration of construction, on-site and off-site restoration, and purchase of mitigation credits. What the analysis found was for all the project alternatives, these mitigation measures would lessen the impact to biological resources to a less than significant level. Okay, so now I want to talk about two aspects of the project with community-based impacts, and that's traffic control and construction staging at the Albion River Campground. Next slide. Okay, traffic control. So this project is going to be staged to minimize the need for traffic control. But when it is needed, we anticipate that the project would use one-way traffic control, where each direction of traffic takes turns using the open lane, using flaggers, or possibly a temporary signal system. And anybody who's driven on stretches of Highway 1 or Highway 20 recently have undoubtedly seen these types of traffic control used. Yes. Traffic delays are generally expected to be 15 minutes or less, and the bridge will be operational during construction, meaning that traffic can move across it. And that will continue up until the point that it's removed from service. So the final step prior to removing that bridge from service is switching traffic from the existing bridge onto the newly constructed bridge. And in order to prepare for that traffic switch, the bridge would be closed overnight. Message boards and messaging systems would be used to inform the public in advance of that closure. And the project would implement a contingency plan so that emergency services can make their way across the bridge during that closure time, through the closure, so they would always have access across the bridge. Now, as is customary with Caltrans projects, The project would have a coordinated approach to traffic management for the duration. So that would include things like coordinating with the Mendocino Transit Authority, their bus schedule, and the school bus system to minimize impacts on the bus schedules, and a commitment to maintain access to businesses on Highway 1, to side roads, and to resident entrances. Okay, next I want to talk about the Albion River Campground. Next slide. Thanks, Ramona. Okay, many of you probably don't need me to orient, but I'm going to here. So this is an aerial view of the Albion River Campground. It sits just north of the Albion River, east of the bridge. The Albion Beach is just off this image to the west of the bridge. Now this area is essentially the work zone for the project. So it's currently anticipated that the project will need the area shown kind of shaded in this purple color here for the duration of construction. Now, in the interest of public safety and the safety of the construction crews, it's currently planned to fence this area for the duration. Now, it's anticipated that other areas on site could remain open for visitors. So that includes things like the convenience store and parking lot, the picnic area, the restrooms, as well as the dock, marina, and boat launches. The Albion River would also remain open, except during limited periods when closure is needed to facilitate work across the river. And that's such as when we're installing temporary platforms to access the bridge. Any temporary closures would be coordinated with the Coast Guard, and advance notice would be provided to the public. Next slide. Okay. One final point with regard to the environmental analysis and its conclusions. Now, CEQA, which we talked about earlier, it requires that the project identify an environmentally superior alternative in the DED. This is the alternative that is found to have the overall environmental advantage, that means the least impacts, based on the project's impact analysis. Now, for this project, the superior alternative is the arch on the east, alternative 2B. Now, determining which alternative is superior involves an evaluation of impacts in each of those resource categories that I showed on the prior slide, with a focus on the potential for long-term significant impacts. Now, for this project, the alternatives had similar effects in many of the resource categories, but there's one notable exception, and that's aesthetics. So the DED found that the arch alternatives are better for aesthetics. That's alternative 1B and 2B. And the non-arch alternatives were worse for aesthetics. That's alternatives 1A, 2A, and 3A. Also, notably, alternatives 1A and 3A had the highest potential to cause underwater sound impacts related to pile driving during construction, and 3A had the longest construction period, as you heard, 5 years. So this leaves us with the two arch alternatives, 1B and 2B. In comparing the two, alternative 2B resulted in less energy use, had fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and less landform change. Now, something important here. The environmentally superior alternative is not necessarily the same as the preferred alternative. The preferred alternative, which you will hear us undoubtedly talk about tonight, is the alternative that is ultimately selected for the project. That selection process does not happen until the comment period closes and Caltrans has reviewed all of the agency and public comments and taken them into account. We are in that comment period right now, and that means your comments matter. So on that note, I'm going to hand the mic back over to our facilitator to describe the process and timeline for submitting your comments on the DED. Thank you.
So, thank you, Katie. Thank you, Candace. The comment period for the environmental document is currently open. It is open through September 9th. And we want to invite everyone to submit written comments on these alternatives and on the document. So you can do that in a few different ways. One, you can fill out a written comment card, which are available tonight. And we passed some out in the beginning. If you haven't gotten one, don't worry, you can grab one from the table over here and you can submit those. You can also submit them via mail, via email, or as I mentioned, oops, now I've repeated myself, on the comment card. So we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to submit those comments, which is why there's several different ways of doing that. And we also want to mention that you can stay up to date on the project by following the website. There's the link on the screen behind me, and you can also find it via Google if you need it. So, as I promised, we are going to spend a lot of our time together tonight on Q&A. And so we're going to go ahead and transition to that now. And we have a lot of folks here tonight. We do have some good quality time. Just checking. Yeah, we got some good time allotted for this. So we are going to be able to get through a lot of questions. If we don't get to your question tonight, please do submit it on that comment card so that we can make sure to get back to you with an answer, okay? And then since we do have a lot of folks, we are going to ask that you try to keep your question brief so that we can hear from as many people as possible. I know that I have some friends just outside the doors. If you all are welcome to also participate in the Q&A. You can just step in, raise your hand, and I will acknowledge you, okay? So that's how we're going to do Q&A tonight. And we have a panel of folks that is available to support with answering these questions. We want to make sure that we get through as many as possible. So I'm going to stop and go ahead and open up the floor for question and answer. Do I have a hand? Let's see, somebody starts off. Awesome.
My name is Alex DeGrassi. I own a house in the village with my wife on Albion. Maybe just... Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And my wife and I own a house in the village on Albion River Road, south side, directly across from the fire department's property. And so my question is two-part. First part is, should this project happen, I understand that there will be potential access with heavy equipment and trucks and so forth down Albion River south side, and that some temporary construction easement will be utilized to cross probably our neighbor's property on the other side. And so that's, and the question that goes with that is there any documentation about how much time that will take and what precisely that will entail in terms of widening the road, cutting an easement, what kind of equipment, for how long, all those kinds of things. In other words, how long will the neighbors be putting up with that? That's question one. And the second part is, I'll just get this off really quick. There are, including ourselves, people on that road who have either short-term vacation rentals or part of their property is used as short-term vacation rentals. And, that's going to pretty much kill that business for all of us. And just wondering what kind of compensation, and again, that ties into the original questions. We want to know for how long and how extensive that construction easement is going to be going on.
Thank you. Can you
Please
guys
fix
hear me?
that mic.
Can you guys hear me okay? If I speak up, can you guys hear me okay?
No, but this mic was too loud.
Oh, it was too loud. Okay.
Way too loud.
We can try and turn that down. We're trying to hit that sweet spot. Can you guys hear me okay though? Awesome. Okay, so we had a great two-part question over here. The question was about construction easements and what is going to be necessary to access the construction site, right? Should the bridge go forward? And then the second question was around, will there be any compensation for individuals who have short-term rental and stand to lose business during the construction period. Did I capture your
Yeah,
question?
and part of that question is just how long?
And how long?
You know, I
Thank
mean,
you.
is it for the duration of the
Yeah.
3 years or just part of that time?
Thank you, really important.
Yeah.
So, and the other part was the duration as well. Okay, y'all go ahead and turn it over.
During construction, we anticipate all businesses, all homes will continue to have access. We will not shut off your access to your home. We will not shut off the access to your business. As far as right-of-way, once we have a preferred alternative and a final environmental document, right-of-way agents will reach out to impacted owners and begin those conversations about what property or what kind of easement. All of those questions are in the future.
What about compensation? You didn't answer that.
Let's see, I think there was a follow-up question on compensation available to folks who stand to lose business during that period.
It's really crucial.
So it's really crucial for us to get to that preferred alternative.
I think we can reach the right of the folks outside. Yeah.
It's crucial that we get to that preferred alternative. Once the preferred alternative is decided and there's a final environmental document, our right-of-way agents would reach out to property owners. That information is forthcoming. I'm not a right-of-way agent. They don't let me talk about compensation, but that stuff is discussed in the next phase of the work.
Let's go to the widened existing bridge, okay? How will that bridge perform if sea level is 8 feet higher? Has anybody even thought about it? Because I haven't heard anybody mention it. The second question, because that would be like within 10 years maybe. The second question is how will it perform when the sea level is 25 feet higher, which will be also definitely pretty much in this century. If I don't see anybody mentioning on either side their plans for dealing with the sea level rise, and it's not a hoax, it's actually going to happen.
So the question is on how a new bridge would perform at specific levels of sea level rise. The question was specifically about 8 feet and 25 feet and increased sea level rise in general. Is yours working? We're going to try this, folks.
Do you want me to turn it on?
I do.
Okay.
Let's see.
All right. Sea level rise. The new bridges are designed for a 75-year service life before major maintenance is required. And so they did look at some of that stuff. And I'm fortunate tonight to have Brian Carter, our structures design engineer, that can talk a little bit more about how they design for sea level rise and into the future. Brian?
Hi everyone, I'm Brian, and unfortunately I'm not a hydraulics engineer, but we do have a hydraulics report, and we are looking into sea level rise for the new bridge alternatives. And as you can see, one of the defining features of any of the new alternatives is there's less piers coming down into the water. The arch bridge completely spans the water, and even the non-arch bridges, they only have 3 piers touching down. Unlike the existing bridge, it has the wooden piers. I forget how often, but they're really often. And due to sea level rise, it's optimal to have less piers touching down into the water because there's less piers that could get in the way of debris and everything floating in the water. So that is something that we haven't taken into account.
Awesome, thank you so much. I've got a question here. And then we're going to come to the back.
Thank you to all the Caltrans staff and the consultants for being here. I'm Robert Dahl. I've worked here in Albion on environmental matters since I was a sophomore in high school in 1965. I've got a long history, including with the Albion River Bridge. I have 2 questions and 1 comment. The first question is, what is the peak noise in DBA that construction or deconstruction as part of any of the alternatives would involve? Peak noise level. Question number 2 is, I have read all 3,000 odd pages of the EIR, EIS multiple times. I've almost begun to memorize it. I do not see the required alternatives analysis of maintaining, repairing, enhancing, and retrofitting with pedestrian and bicycle of the existing, and more importantly, supporters of the Albion River Bridge. That is missing from this document. And that casts a massive shadow over what all of you have done. You've all put in a lot of work. We all appreciate that. But the EIR, EIS misses the key point. And that is an analysis of how does one, in Caltrans speak, rehabilitate the existing bridge, what is necessary, what is the budget, how does it compare to what Caltrans has done with the Division of Highways going back to 1950 when the first maintenance was done. That whole thing is missing from this document, which renders it substantially incomplete and inaccurate. Last one is a comment. And that is, the Caltrans project manager has made several references to the alternatives in slide 18, and that they are consistent with, in various ways, the applicable laws. Key question. The Federal Coastal Program, the California Coastal Act, and the County Local Coastal Program, which is part of the Federal Coastal Program, all have a policy requirement that is absolutely mandatory that says any new development in Lower Albion River Valley outside of the existing footprint of the existing historic iconic bridge has to be subordinate to the natural setting. Very clearly from the slides that you have shown and the pretty pictures behind me, none of the alternatives that are addressed in the draft EIR, EIS, speak to in county LCP terms, policy 3.5-1. And the reason is that no new bridge, every new alternative that you have, that you've addressed in the draft document, is in the designated highly scenic area where what you are proposing or considering is not allowed. It's that simple. You are proposing alternatives that are, in legal technical terms, infeasible and unlawful. And for that reason, I would professionally and collegially urge everyone who works in and for Caltrans to go back to the drawing board, look really seriously at rehabilitating the existing bridge that obviously has widespread community support, and make it work for decades, if not many decades, maybe another 75 years. This bridge is 80 years old and is in remarkably good shape, notwithstanding all the deferred and avoided maintenance that has occurred in the last 20 years. So we would respectfully ask that Caltrans take the 3,000-page document, take it back, focus on what is essential, not what avoidance of maintenance would like to see, but what is essential under the laws of California, the County of Mendocino, and the United States. And that alternative is not addressed. It's basically shunted off to the side because all of us, many of us, support preservation, restoration, maintenance, and sustainable enhancement of this priceless treasure, the only one of its kind on the coast of California. So thank you for all of your work, but there's a lot to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Norbert. So we had two questions to start that off. The first was around, I remember too. The first was around maximum noise levels in DBA specifically. And the second question, oh my goodness, was about, Norbert, help me out here. It was about why the rehab is not present in the draft EIR.
In so many words.
In so many words. And then, of course, we got your comment as well.
Right.
Okay, awesome. Kate, go ahead.
Excellent. And I know that you'll be submitting comments in writing, so I welcome those
There'll be a
comments.
test at the end.
You're all, I appreciate that. So, noise levels. Candace, can you talk about what was in the environmental document as far as noise levels, and then I can follow up with more information.
Of course, I can talk a little bit about that. So we had a noise study prepared by a noise specialist. He's not here tonight. And that noise study looked at things like what I think you're talking about, Mr. Dahl, these short-term noise impacts related to construction work.
As well as long-term.
So I did look at short-term and long-term noise impacts. I don't know the DBA offhand.
206,
So
according to the document. 206 dBA. And maybe I can ask you if I may, how does that compare to a jet engine taking off on a runway?
I don't know the comparison.
Any engineer here who took that class?
Yeah, it's 180.
180,
But
right?
I
What number?
can,
Robert, it sounds like you've got the answers to these.
I looked it up.
Okay.
I would welcome you to submit those comments. So I hope that you'll submit those comments.
But you, Ms. Everett, you do acknowledge, because you read the documents, that the document stands for the proposition that the peak noise level from the project, one of the alternatives, if it were to be implemented, would peak at 206 dBA, louder than a jet aircraft taking off from an airport.
This is a really important information. In order to speak very accurately, I want you to be able to submit those comments so that we can answer them in writing within the final environmental document.
Thank you.
And
I've got some, did you have something to
I
add?
wanted to answer part 2 of his question.
Oh, thank you.
Rehab options. So, as I mentioned, Appendix I goes into detail about why the rehab options were eliminated from consideration. There was an extensive analysis that was done, and Appendix I does document all the reasons why a rehab option is not being put forward. It does not meet the local coastal plan. It does not fix the structure critical trust span. And there are...
Ms. Everett, how long is Appendix I?
Norbert, we do have a lot of questions to get through, so we're gonna go ahead and keep going, because I want to make sure that we've got so many hands. We've got so many hands, so we're gonna hear from folks. I've got 2 at the door, and then we're gonna come back, okay? And wish me luck walking by the speaker.
Thank you. I've been following this for a number of years, and I'm looking at the common actions based on National Bridge Inventory General Condition Ratings. And it's been bounced back and forth that this bridge had everything from 6 satisfactory condition to fair condition. And a lot of the common actions under the National Bridge Inventory General Condition Ratings indicate that preservation and condition-based maintenance and rehabilitation can be included, and also preservation. So when I was covering this for the Mendocino Beacon, I had my notes from those years. There was a 2013 inspection report, a 2015 inspection report, and it bounced around between different conditions of these ratings. And back then, the Albion Bridge, quote, is a safe bridge, said Cassian. So I'm really confused on how you jumped up from we cannot keep the bridge with maintenance. And also I want to make one point about the eelgrass. This is a biological sensitive area, and I just participated in a seagrass presentation about a week ago. I was watching it. The eelgrass is not just habitat for fish. It's habitat for about 400 different species. Eelgrass helps mitigate tidal surges, and eelgrass cannot be replaced easily. So you have 2 things going on here. You know, why can't the bridge be kept and maintained and repaired and protect the biological integrity of the area? Thank you.
So we had a two-part question, and tell me if I get this right. The first part is why or how did we get from it being safe several years ago to the point of where we need to replace it now? Based on this specific condition rating, thank you. And the second part of your question was around how will the eelgrass be protected during this process?
What you're missing from my question is why can't we keep the bridge and rehabilitate it? So this biodiversity can be protected.
Thank you. And the third part is why can't we keep the bridge and rehabilitate it to protect the biodiversity? Thank you.
You're gonna have to help me out with all those parts. So the first part, the rehab. The bridge is safe to use for daily use. The bridge continues to deteriorate. In the event of an earthquake, the bridge is seismically susceptible and could collapse or be closed. The bridge lacks modern barrier rails, which puts safety at risk. Modern vehicles continue to increase in size, and the barrier rail does not meet those standards. There are also local, state, and federal policies that reflect the need for multimodal transportation that are not met by the rehab alternatives. And I'd like to ask Candace, can you follow up on the mitigation measures for eelgrass and other environmental factors?
Yes, so we also have our biologist here tonight, so I'm going to answer one piece of this and then hand it off to Dawn, since we have her here. The one point I did want to make is that there is an eelgrass mitigation policy at the state level, which the project would follow. And I believe the only alternative that proposes a bridge foundation that partially impacts the eelgrass is 1A. The remainder of the options actually avoid it. Now I'm going to hand it over to Dawn to add to that.
Thank you for your question. Hi, everybody. My name is Dawn. I'm the project biologist. I guess really what I would add is that we've been working closely with CDFW and our NOAA partners. We know there's eelgrass there. We also know there's surf grass there. So we would do our best during construction to avoid impacts. We would do pre-construction mapping, we would do post-construction mapping, and then again continue to work with our agency partners to develop a robust mitigation plan. Yeah, I was just saying that we've been working with our agency partners, CDFW, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and NIMS or NOAA, the National Marine Fisheries. So NOAA being the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. Administration, thank you. So to map the eelgrass prior to construction and develop a robust mitigation plan.
Thank you. And then we had part 3 of that question, which was why not rehab in order to preserve the biological resources? Which I know we've spoken about rehab already, but specifically in relation to biological resources.
When we look at the whole of the deficiencies with Albion Bridge, the environmental document does point to the need to replace. The rehab alternative does not fix the limited sight distance and the curve at the north of the bridge. It does not fix the susceptibility to environmental climate change, and these are also policies dictated by county, local, and state regulators. And for those reasons, the rehab alternatives are not moved forward in consideration and have been removed.
Thank you. Let's see, here we go.
Hi, I'm Sarah Crystal. I've been connected with this area since 67, 68. But I'm from New Jersey, so don't hate me for that. But in my hometown, they drove a freeway through, destroyed my neighborhood, destroyed the city. And this many years later, since 1964, it has not recovered. I can tell you what it feels like to have eminent domain, take your house to the best friend next door, and give you 10 cents on the dollar, because that is what gets done. I can tell you what happens when your pretty little neighborhood is destroyed. There is a toll booth where my house used to be. I believe that we can save our bridge. And I think we should try really hard to do it, because every single thing that I've seen Caltrans do in the last 3 to 6 months has taken a gorgeous spot and turned it into an ugly spot. A really, really ugly. And I don't want to lose another house to a greedy transportation construction company who only wants to go faster over roads. Let's go faster. So,
Thank you for your comment. Let's see, we have a question down here.
I'm going a little bit beyond all the questions about whether this will be done or not. To construction, you mentioned one lane. If a totally new bridge is being built on either side, why will not both lanes of the old bridge remain open during construction?
Awesome. So the question was about why would in constructing a new bridge, why would it be necessary to go down to one lane if it's being constructed on either side of the existing bridge?
Depending on the preferred alternative that is selected, construction impacts will vary. It is anticipated that there will be some delays. It really depends on the type of work that is being conducted, whether or not the full bridge is available or if one lane must be reduced. We do have our construction expert, Jeff Wright, here, who can talk about typical practices in construction.
Good evening, Jeffrey Wright. I'm the area construction engineer for coastal Mendocino County. And in a typical scenario, it's hard to speak specifics because we don't have a specific set of plans, but there will likely be 2 lanes of traffic on the existing bridge for the majority of the construction. But once we have the new bridge constructed, whatever that new alternative that's finally selected is, there will be a time when we will have to have one lane of the bridge shut down while we build the new approaches to the bridge, because they transition very close to the existing structure. And so the durations are unknown at this time because we don't know the final alternative that will be selected. But once that is selected, we can figure out the staging a lot closer, and the majority of the construction will allow 2 lanes of traffic during the majority of construction. But when it comes time to cut over the new bridge, it will require some impacts to traffic, and it will reduce it to 1 lane, which may require flaggers or signal control. But those details aren't known at this point, but I think it's reasonable to assume that the majority of the construction period will allow 2 lanes of traffic to occur.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
that answers your question.
Let's see, so I have a lot of hands. I am gonna see if there's any folks outside this door. Is there anybody over here? Since I've done 3 in the middle, 3 on the side. Okay, so I'm gonna come back here. Let's see, I've got one right here. Go ahead.
Thank you. So you're going to be doing construction in an estuary, on the beach, in eelgrass. I happen to know that the eelgrass has been mapped by Fish and Game. It's on the Public Bios website, and we have the best eelgrass beds between Bodega Bay and Humboldt Bay. So that's really, really important. So my question is, how are you going to take this opportunity to make that even better?
Thank you. So the question is about protecting the eelgrass and even improving the eelgrass that is present in this area.
Improving eelgrass. Candace, can you talk a little bit about what's in the environmental document as far as eelgrass?
Yes, so the existing bridge, the footing that's on the south side of the river actually partially crosses over that eelgrass that's mapped there. So one of the improvements is that by removing that footing completely, it's going to allow those eelgrass beds to be restored in that area. Dawn, is there any more you want to add to that?
Oh, come on.
Thank you.
So the mitigation plan that we've developed is yet to come.
I just want to be sure everyone knows there is a massive opportunity to make a big difference as an eelgrass estuary that feeds our ocean, feeds our fish, impacts climate change. And if we're going to be destroying something, this is the perfect opportunity here. And as they said in the meeting that Mary was at, there are not many estuaries available for restoration to happen in. We have one. And I think that, actually I'd like to get the sense from the community, how important you guys think that is.
Thank you.
Why not?
So just to recap that comment, since you didn't have the mic at that time, that there's a big opportunity right now to support the restoration of eelgrass in this area, and we heard some claps in response to that important idea, and I do hope that you will submit some specifics on that in the written comment. Thank you. Awesome, great. Let's see, I've got a question over here.
Awesome, hello. My name's David, and I have a home in the Albion Village, along with my wife Kelly and our daughter Simone. We have a few other kids in the village, as people of all ages, who are now moving there, growing up there, hoping to enjoy this area and the scenery and the beautiful bridge. So I have two questions and then a comment. The first question is, I guess, pretty straightforward. Like your report says, you're going to be using 16,000 gallons of water a day to create this horrific granite bridge. So I guess my question is, where do you plan to get that water? As a member of the Albion Mutual Water Company, where we own the water there, so that's my first question. Second question is, I saw your designs had a walkway along the west side. How, from a safety perspective, I guess maybe I want to, I'll zoom out a little bit. Are you asking, there's 3,000 cars that drive across the bridge every day, according to your report. Are you asking people, small kids, elderly people, to walk across the one, to reach the walkway, to walk across to nothing, to walk back across, to get to nowhere? What's your plan? And I guess my third point is just a comment, is that we are going to save this bridge. Like, we have lots of time, we have lots of energy, we have generations that are going to fight this thing, and we are going to make it very, very difficult, not just from the legal perspective, we have some very good legal points, but from a physically being able to be there and construct this thing perspective. So we're pulling out all the stops, and we're going to stop this bridge from being built, and we're going to save Albion Bridge.
I've gotten wiser, I'm starting to take notes. Okay, so I had a two-part question and a comment. The first was on water source. Where will the water that's needed for construction come from? The second was about the walkway on the west side, and what is the expectation around how folks will get to that walkway and then get back?
The walkway was designed on the west side. It's towards the ocean. You can look at the view. There's opportunities within the design refinement during final design that we can optimize the west side, the east side. It was placed on the west side because it would be the most opportune view.
How do you get there?
The real idea, well, we really look for infrastructure, especially bridges, to be designed with a 75-year service life. And so while bridges continue to be designed, we anticipate future construction. Like I mentioned, State Route 1 is part of the Mendocino, is part of the California Coastal Trail, and all the different policies that go into that. So we really want to make sure we're providing multimodal access on all of our infrastructure.
Wouldn't that be like a very important safety consideration to have to provide people with a walkway that they can't get to immediately?
Very, very true. Yeah. And that's something we can look at further during the final design.
Thank you.
And part of providing the bridge is to make sure that there's continued access. With a new bridge, there will be continued access for years to come. With the current existing bridge and the rehab options, they don't allow for that continued access. The susceptibility to the earthquakes and the tsunamis and the sea level rise really compound all of the reasons why we have to move towards replacing this bridge. And I want to pass it off to Candace.
Sorry, second.
Yeah, I want to pass it off to Candace so she can talk about the water sources that were included in the environmental document.
Okay, thank you. So the DED did contain information about the approximate daily usage of water. It gave a maximum set up to 16,000 gallons of water a day, and then noted that that would fluctuate depending on the season and the type of work. So to put that into context, a typical water truck is about 4,000 gallons, so that's 4 loads a day, which is pretty typical. But that water use is seasonal as well. So while we identified an approximate maximum, this does not mean that that quantity of water would be used every single day. We are confident that there are sources of water beyond the Albion Mutual Water Company. So one source that was identified in the DED was from construction dewatering, and where we would be able to actually dewater and use some of that water for our needs.
What, sorry, what is
Thank
that?
you.
Follow-up question on what is dewatering?
Yeah, so I'll explain it a little bit, and then I'll actually hand it over to Brian if he wants to add a little more. But construction dewatering is typically where you put controls in place around a foundation so that you can prevent intrusion of water, and then you pump the water out that's already there. It's usually groundwater, so that you can get access to the deeper part of the foundation. Brian, do you want to add to that?
I think you summed it up pretty well, and if anyone was to add more, I would say, do you want to add anything to that, Jeff?
So I can try to answer. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
So I'll speak in the mic just because we were supposed to. Construction dewatering is when you have foundation excavations. Frequently you will run into groundwater that inflows to the foundation, and you have to remove that water so you can proceed with the construction effort that needs to occur. And so in that effort, that water will be extracted and it will be saved in a water truck, in a water tank, and we're utilizing that water that would be an impediment to construction otherwise, and it also decreases the need for impacting other water sources. So it's something that is in the way. We would remove it from the foundation excavation and then put it to good use.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm just conscious of the time, so we are going to take 1 or 2 more questions. And I do want to really encourage you to make use of the comment cards tonight so that we can get your questions if we don't, because we're not going to have a chance to get to everybody today, okay?
The meeting should be longer.
We waited 5 years for this.
I'm Rick Sandwaren. I'm the chair of the Coastal Committee of the Sierra Club Mendocino Group. So I'm going to make a short statement and then ask a question. We have run into this problem over and over with Caltrans because Caltrans is not only the applicant, they're also the agency that approves it. And whatever Caltrans says pretty much is okay because it's Caltrans on both sides. So we have a problem with that. We're having a problem that the written objectives do not include any of the community objectives pronounced in the community meetings. Therefore, only Caltrans objectives are considered valid, and the alternative preservation and maintenance can be eliminated. We have to be included on the purpose. We suggested an inclusion of to respect community values and scenic resources. Hope you will consider that. Then we would like to see a reinstatement of alternative 5 as maintain and preserve the Albion Bridge with additional pedestrian, bicycle, and safety improvements. We think this is possible. I'm especially dismayed that the section on community character and cultural resources dismisses the destruction of a significant historical Albion River Bridge with the statement that losing the existing bridge would impact community character. The existing bridge is the elephant in the room and deserves to be much more respect and attention than is evidenced in this report. The bridge will be the subject of negotiations between Caltrans and the State Office of Historic Preservation, and the Sierra Club will be hoping for a more nuanced statement of support for protecting the bridge. We feel that as a state agency, you have not only the obligation, but the duty to protect the bridge. It's a state historic resource. Secondly, public access. The DRR states that at least 3 years of elimination of public access to this navigable river and ocean shoreline. It's long been a goal of the Sierra Club to gain access to the shoreline under the bridge, including parking. It's now strongly restricted by the lack of county road and parking. As the CT Caltrans road right-of-way is being expanded and the roads improved, we strongly request that the parking and access to the bridge road be included in project plans. This is the only access open at Albion and the only scenic resource that we can hope to save. I'll skip some of the rest of this, I'll put it in my notes. But the question is about the road on the north side going down to the flats. It's very narrow and has an extremely steep hairpin turn. And we'd like to see better diagrams of how that road will be configured to meet the Albion Little River Road. Probably means cutting through that neighborhood. And widening the road, I understand there's huge equipment coming down that road. So what is the plan for that? Thank you.
Thank you. So the question is about, so there's a statement followed by a question on the road configuration specifically connecting to Albion Little River and what widening would need to happen. Okay. Go ahead.
I really appreciate your comment, and I hope that you can submit those as well to the website, the Albion Bridge at dot.ca.gov, so we can help include those in the final environmental document. As far as the road widening, I want to pass it over to our project engineer, Corey Matson, to follow up on any road widening information.
Yeah, good evening, Corey Matson with Roadway Design. So we looked at the access down to the campground. As you mentioned, the north or west side of the road will be realigned to intersect with the other local road. How that intersection configuration ends up depends on the alternative, because there's different alignments through that area. As far as the roadway down to the campground, we're working with our team, Granite, to kind of evaluate the needs, and we are looking at widening that road and improving the turn so that larger vehicles can get down there, but again, that's to be determined, the final configuration.
Question back here, and this is probably going to be our last question, so I do want to ask everybody to take the time to write down your questions on the comment cards, and we can pass out some extras.
Thank you so much. I wasn't sure if I heard this answer. I don't think I did. Is it the intent that during the time of the construction that the river will be closed to kayakers and boaters that may want to go out and play in the bay or go fishing? Could you clarify? I never heard if it was going to be closed or if it would remain open to the public.
Thank you. So the question is about public access during construction.
And I heard the question was very specific about river access. We do anticipate that there will be some days that the river needs to be closed when a trestle is put into place. There is more information in the environmental document. Candace, can you talk about expected river access closures and what was discussed in the document?
Yeah, so actually on that summary table, it has the number of days that are expected for closure for each of the project alternatives. With the exception of those days, the river would remain open.
And what are those days?
And those days are in the summary table. Just don't have them memorized. I think it depends on the project alternative.
You don't know what they are?
So if you could put that question in writing, Mr. Dahl, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. I think we actually have time for one more question. Thank you for keeping it short and sweet. I got somebody over here I know who's been anxious to ask. Go ahead.
This is the second time you've come around. Last time you actually chased you away because you believed that you were not.
Sure.
This is the second time you've been around. I think the last time was either 6 or 10 years ago.
And apparently we convinced you that we were going to allow you to take down this bridge and put up something else, and you went away. And the reason you were here then was because many of you faced layoffs and were quite open about it at the dinner table after the meeting. To what extent do your jobs depend upon we're taking our bridge this time?
So we had a question about, we had a statement followed by a question on how, whether jobs at Caltrans depend on this project.
My job with Caltrans is to ensure public safety. Caltrans' main goal is to ensure public safety on our highways and roads for cars, for pedestrians, and for bicyclists. So my job very much directly depends on providing safety to all roadway users.
But the department as a whole?
The department's
Answer the question.
Last time you were here, we seemed to be like Lisa Mark.
Yeah.
We proved ourselves not to be. But the problem was many of your staff were facing layoffs, and that was one of the proposals to do this year.
Okay. So the critical infrastructure with the Albion Bridge has several deficiencies. One of them being that it's seismically vulnerable. The steel truss lacks redundancy. It's vulnerable to climate change. The post spacings are too close, so if there's any kind of debris loading or tsunami, it could catastrophically fail. The bridge rails are substandard. Our modern vehicles continue to increase in size, and safety dictates that we fix the bridge rails. For all those reasons, the draft environmental document has really pointed us in the direction that we must replace the bridge. And Caltrans' main goal is to provide safety for all community, all roadway users. And that is our main focus, is to provide safety for all roadway users.
Thank you so much. So I'm sorry, we are at time, folks. It is 7:30, so we are going to go ahead and end our meeting here. We do have,
questions.
I hear a comment, I hear feedback that this was too short and that there wasn't time for enough questions. I want to assure you that we have noted that feedback. And we really want to encourage you, please, I know I've said this a lot of times already, but I really want to encourage you to submit written comment. You've heard that there are, thank you. You can hand it to me directly, or you can also turn it in at the table over here. You can also submit comment on the website, okay? So September 9th. By September 9th, please submit your public comment by September 9th so that we can include it in the official record. Thank you, everybody.